Your destiny changes the moment you become allergic to excuses. There's a moment in every person's life when the mirror stops being just a piece of glass. It becomes a confrontation, a quiet lesson, a teacher that doesn't say a word but somehow tells you everything you need to hear. I remember this moment vividly because it happened to a young man I once met at a seminar many years ago. He came up to me after the session with shoulders a little too heavy and a voice a little too tired for someone his age. He said, "I'm trying really hard, but life just keeps blocking me. There's always something in the way." And when he said something, he listed everything you can imagine: his job, his friends, the economy, his lack of support, his circumstances, his weaknesses, his past, and even the time of the year. It was almost like he carried a backpack filled with excuses, and every excuse had its own story about why he wasn't where he wished to be. I listened patiently because we all begin in the same place, believing that our struggles are unique obstacles placed there to keep us from rising. But I asked him something that made him pause. I said, "What if your destiny isn't running from you? What if you're simply refusing to meet it because you keep feeding the excuses that block the door?" He looked at me confused, so I told him a story about a farmer who wanted a great harvest but kept blaming the weather, the soil, the tools, the season, the insects, the neighbors, and anything else he could point a finger at. One day, an older farmer told him, "The moment you stop making excuses is the moment the soil starts listening to you." The young farmer realized that excuses were weeds, and weeds grow fast. They don't need sunlight, water, or care. They appear instantly and steal nutrients from everything that could have grown tall. And that's how life works. Excuses are weeds. They thrive effortlessly. Results are crops. They grow only under discipline, consistency, and intention. I told the young man that the day he becomes allergic to excuses, everything changes. His attitude, his habits, his decisions, his focus, his urgency, and his entire story. Not because the world becomes easier, but because he becomes stronger. You see, most people think their destiny is written somewhere far away, in the stars, in fate, in luck, in timing. But destiny is shaped right here, in the small moments where we decide whether we are victims of the day or masters of our choices. Every time we say, "I can't," because we are signing a contract with mediocrity. Every time we say, "I can," even though we are signing a partnership with growth. I explained to him that excuses are comfortable. They give you shelter. They make you feel justified. They protect your ego, even while they destroy your potential. Excuses let you sleep a little longer, work a little less, blame a little more, and surrender a little faster. That's why so many people collect them like trophies. But what they don't realize is that excuses are expensive. They cost you years, opportunities, confidence, relationships, health, wealth, and dreams. And the bill always arrives when you least expect it. The young man stood there silent, and I could see in his eyes that something was shifting. So I continued. I said, "Let me tell you what happens when you develop an allergy to excuses. It begins as a slight discomfort, a feeling that something isn't right when you hear yourself say, 'I'll start tomorrow,' or 'I'm too tired,' or 'I'm not ready.' Then it becomes an irritation. Your skin crawls when you catch yourself blaming someone else for something you know deep down you should have handled. And then, eventually, it becomes a strong physical and emotional reaction, an absolute refusal to accept anything less than responsibility, action, and commitment. When you reach that point, the world responds differently to you. Doors open because you knock with a different force. People trust you because you speak with a different certainty. Opportunities appear because you see with a different lens. And results follow because you act with a different level of intention. You stop waiting for the perfect moment because you finally understand that perfection is a luxury of those who are willing to waste time. You stop waiting for motivation because you know discipline produces far more results than inspiration ever will. You stop waiting for approval because you realize that people who don't build your future shouldn't have the power to delay it. I then shared with him something I learned long ago, that life does not reward excuses, but it always rewards responsibility. Responsibility is heavy for a reason. It separates those who rise from those who drift. The moment you say, "It's on me," even when the circumstances aren't your fault, you take the steering wheel of your destiny. You start driving instead of being driven. Your life becomes a deliberate creation instead of a slow reaction. I told him that becoming allergic to excuses doesn't mean you never feel tired, discouraged, or or frustrated. It simply means you no longer allow those emotions to decide your direction. You acknowledge them, but you don't surrender to them. You feel them, but you don't let them anchor you. You face challenges, but you don't let challenges write your story. Instead, you rise with a fierce determination because you know that every excuse avoided is a victory earned. Then I said something that made him smile. Do you know what happens to a person who eliminates excuses? They become unstoppable, not because they are perfect, but because they are willing, not because they are gifted, but because they are committed, not because the path gets easier, but because their mindset becomes sharper. A person without excuses is a person with power. A person with power becomes a person with influence, and a person with influence shapes their destiny instead of waiting for destiny to shape them. You see, the world doesn't put limits on us. We put limits on ourselves. Life doesn't tell us what we can't do. Our excuses do. And when we remove those excuses, suddenly the path opens, the strength appears, the clarity arrives, and the future expands. That young man walked away with a different posture that day. His shoulders lifted, his voice steadied, his eyes sharpened, because he realized that nothing had to change around him. He had to change. And the moment he changed, everything else would begin to follow. So let me tell you this, the same way I told him. Your destiny is not waiting for next year, next month, or next Monday. Your destiny is waiting for the moment you stop feeding excuses and start feeding action. Your life begins to transform the moment you become allergic to excuses, because in that moment you stop negotiating with weakness and start partnering with purpose. Excuses are the chains that keep potential locked away. The moment you reject them, fully, completely, and unapologetically, is the moment your destiny finally has space to grow.